Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. Well, with me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, we had in the last few days another one of these shock horror events in Europe, where apparently Amsterdam was beset by rampaging anti-Semitic mobs that reminded everyone of Kristallnacht, which is the 30 years, so it would be the 86th anniversary of Kristallnacht. So, but Kristallnacht is a kind of a permanent feature now of our lives. Every day is Kristallnacht. Now, what had happened was that Israeli football team had come to Amsterdam to play a Europa Cup match, and there's basically a fight broke out between the supporters of Ajax Amsterdam and the supporters of the Israeli team. But of course, it became very, very nasty, and the media have run with the story of anti-Semitism, and that somehow the attacks on the supporters of the Israeli team were driven by anti-Semitism. But of course, the moment one starts looking into the events, and even in the mainstream media, just as they report the events, it's clear that we're being sold a bill of goods, and that somehow that this was some act of anti-Semitism is basically without any supporting evidence. So
Yeah.
if you look at
Well, when
yeah,
you have football hooliganism, okay, it can
right.
go many different directions.
That's
Okay.
right. Exactly. Um, and then here this is the story in the New York Times, and it says anti-Semitic attacks. So the headline already tells you anti-Semitic attacks. So already the anti-Semitic attacks prompt emergency flights for Israeli soccer fans. And it says Dutch and Israeli officials said the fans had been attacked in Amsterdam after tensions flared around an Israeli team's visit. And then the authorities in Amsterdam were investigating what they called anti-Semitic attacks on Israeli soccer fans that took place amid a charged atmosphere surrounding a soccer match involving a visiting Israeli team. And then the police in Amsterdam said at least 62 people had been arrested in connection with the attacks, which unfolded over 2 tense days. And so people gathered in support of the Israeli team while others protested its presence.
It's interesting. 62 people were arrested.
Yeah,
Okay. They're being a little coy on who the 62 are.
exactly. That's right. That's right. The police in Amsterdam said at least 62, blah, blah. And then the Dutch police said the violence included assault on Israeli fans by people, some riding scooters, who kicked and beat them in hit and runs. And again, but again, they're being coy as to what happened? How did this come about? And there's a street disturbances in Amsterdam had been building since Wednesday night, a day before the match between the Israeli club Maccabi Tel Aviv and the Dutch team's Ajax. Some people, angered by the war in Gaza, were upset that the Israeli team and their supporters had come to the city, and the protests had been planned for Thursday. But then again, but what was it that started this? The Dutch police said the night before the game, Israeli fans had vandalized a taxi and burned the Palestinian flag. Officers later intervened to protect the group of several hundred Israeli supporters inside an Amsterdam casino after what the police described as an online call among taxi drivers to mobilize. So they vandalized the taxi, but the taxi drivers, they're I don't know. I don't know much about these Amsterdam taxi drivers, but they evidently mobilized because they were pissed off about somebody vandalizing a taxi. And I don't know what happened to the taxi driver,
Well,
but I
well, were the police watching? Who was watching this? Okay,
right,
they always vandal. Who's the witness to it all?
right,
Okay.
right, exactly. And then says on game day, the tension and violence continues. Videos showed Israeli fans on the way to the match shouting an anti-Arab chant as they were escorted by the police near Amsterdam Central train station.
Oh, so
Oh,
they have an escort so they can.
exactly. So
Amazing, amazing.
amazing. They get an escort, a police escort, as they're shouting an anti-Arab chant. Why are they shouting an anti-Arab chant in Amsterdam? I mean,
Why are they given police protection? I mean,
right,
would there be if there was anti-Semitic or anti-Israeli shouting? Do you think the police would give them an escort?
right, exactly. Exactly. At the stadium, this is the New York Times. At the stadium, the police said riot police units and mounted officers were required to keep pro-Palestinian groups and Israeli fans apart. I'm still puzzled about where's the anti-Semitism. I mean, I'm looking forward to the Kristallnacht, where there's nothing that you've described here suggested there was any anti-Semitism going on. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he had spoken with his Dutch counterpart Dick Schoof after the violence. Mr. Schoof, in a social media post, condemned what he said were completely unacceptable anti-Semitic attacks on Israelis. So right away, he just sort of does this, launches this, when it seems like, these football hooligans behaved appallingly in Amsterdam, and this triggered violence. And now he's talking about unacceptable anti-Semitic attacks. Mr. Schoof and other Dutch officials vowed to track down and prosecute anyone involved. Well, that's always very interesting because, of course, the Israeli fans, they've already gone. They've departed. They scarpered very quickly. So if he's going to do some tracking down, I mean, it's obviously people who are living in Amsterdam. The mayor of Amsterdam, Femke Halsema, said at a news conference that the violence has nothing to do with protest or demonstration. It was a crime.
Well, what about the taxi driver?
Exactly. What about the taxi driver? Hateful anti-Semitic rioters and criminals harassed and beat up Israeli visitors who were guests in our city. What kind of guests in your city go around chanting anti-Arab slogans? I mean, isn't that a kind of abuse of hospitality?
Yeah, but I mean, we could adjust that sentence here. Hateful rioters and criminals harassed and beat up Amsterdam taxi driver.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
this
Exactly.
is this is hooliganism. Okay.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And then again, another story in the New York Times, Amsterdam bars protests after anti-Semitic attacks on soccer fans. So again, they come along with this anti-Semitic. They don't put any quotes around it, so they accept that this is somehow anti-Semitic. Yet it seems the only people who are being targeted here were the soccer fans, the Israeli soccer fans. Well, you don't have any evidence that they're being targeted just for being Jewish. No, they're being targeted
Yeah, I
because
mean,
they're soccer hooligans.
or just say what it is. Amsterdam bars protests after anti-Israeli attacks on soccer fans. It has everything to do with Israel. It has nothing to do.
Exactly. It is all about it, but they don't want to make it anti-Semitic as if somehow they were targeting Jews. But I haven't read anywhere any suggestion that somehow Jews in Amsterdam were being targeted. The violence erupted around a soccer match, blah blah. And then it says Amsterdam banned demonstrations over the weekend under an emergency order and mobilized additional police officers after what city officials described as anti-Semitic attacks on Israeli soccer fans. So again, it's so peculiar. Anti-Semitic attacks on Israeli soccer fans. You provoke this violence, this confrontation, and when you attack the soccer fans, whether maybe they used excessive force in their attack on the soccer fans, but either way, there's nothing here to suggest that it's anti-Semitic. It was driven by anti-Semitism. The order prohibited the wearing of face masks or face covering and stepping up security at Jewish institutions. It also gave police the power to stop and search people. And then, it says this week's violence unfolded over days around the soccer match, blah, blah. And then again, tensions had mounted a day earlier when Israeli fans vandalized a taxi and burnt a Palestinian flag in the city. After the game, people on scooters kicked and beat Israeli fans, sending some to the hospital. Interestingly, I mean, I saw in the pictures, these fans were all waving Israeli flags, and I don't understand. I mean, this is a club match. So if it's a club match, why are you waving the national flag? I mean, it's like, when you're supporting your club, you don't go around waving the Union Jack or, so this is a club match, not a national team.
Yeah, I mean, the Dutch are famously known for their tolerance and all of that. I've been to Amsterdam. It's a peculiar city, not my taste. But you have a group of people coming from a foreign country waving, burning another country's
Right.
flag and vandalizing their taxi. I mean, I'm supposed to be sympathetic to these
Right,
people?
exactly. I mean, you're kind of, I mean, you're sort of,
Kind of looking for trouble
you're
here.
looking for trouble. You're kind of abusing, the hospitality of the Dutch. And then the tensions have been building in the city before Thursday's match. Pro-Palestinian protests were planned for that day, but on Wednesday, Amsterdam's mayor, Femke Halsema, had banned demonstrations near the stadium in an effort to stave off violence. But that's also very strange, because then why are you providing escorts to Israeli fans chanting anti-Arab slogans? I mean, so where you ban the pro-Palestinian protests, but you allow the Israeli soccer fans to to engage in this anti-Arab chanting. Then it says videos from Thursday showed Israeli fans shouting anti-Arab chants on their way to the match as the police escorted them near Amsterdam Central Station to ensure their safety amid anger over Gaza war. So their safety, they're chanting anti-Arab slogans, and their safety has to be preserved. I mean, it's like it's not exactly a Kristallnacht. Even from this description, it doesn't sound like Kristallnacht.
Well, the New York Times always disappoints me, but sometimes it does surprise.
Right,
They actually printed one of the
right,
slogans
right.
why is there no school in Gaza? There are no children left there.
Yes,
Oh, I mean, if that doesn't leave you empty,
right,
I mean,
right.
really.
Not very nice. It's not a nice thing to chant.
Wow. Now that's a kick in the gut.
Right. And so again, the Dutch police said that some people riding scooters had kicked and beat Israeli fans in hit and run attacks on Thursday, while others pelted them with fireworks. 5 Israelis were hospitalized with injuries and were later discharged, the police said, and 20 to 30 others sustained light injuries. And then social media appears to have played a role in the attacks. The mayor said at a news conference the authorities had seen a rapid spread via Telegram groups wherein people would discuss hunting Jews, so shocking and so reprehensible. But I don't, that's her claim. That's her claim. I mean, they was hunting Jews. Was they really hunting Jews, or were they saying hunting down Israeli soccer fans? Because what the whole thing had been provoked by this behavior of these visiting Israeli soccer fans. So she says, "Oh, they were saying hunting Jews." I'd like to see some of these messages, but they're trying to make this all. Oh, it's about Telegram. A Telegram is in on
Oh
this.
yeah. A nice little dig at Telegram.
Exactly. And then hateful discourse and incitement have often spread on the Telegram platform. This is the New York Times weighs in, which played a role in recent riots in Britain and arson at migrant housing centers in Ireland. In the past, Telegram has said he was making improvements to its features and moderating of posts.
And MSNBC and CNN and Fox News have 24 hours of nonstop propaganda, and now you're going after Telegram.
That's right, exactly. So this is the BBC. We must not turn blind eye to anti-Semitism, says Dutch king after attacks on Israeli football
They still have
fans.
a king. They still have a king.
Yeah, it's always nice to know Dutch. You never hear about this or the Dutch king. Yeah. Um, and then the Dutch king says Jewish people must feel safe in the Netherlands after violent attacks against Israeli football fans in the center of Amsterdam. Well, that's an interesting thing. Did the authorities in Amsterdam tell the football fans not to engage in chanting of anti-Arab slogans? Did they tell them, yeah, please don't burn Palestinian flags, don't vandalize taxis? I mean, before you start sounding off about, Jewish people must feel safe in the Netherlands, violent attacks against Israeli football fans, are unacceptable. Well, how about, telling them to behave appropriately?
Yeah, well, it appears here. Again, this BBC article, I don't know if it's the entirety of it here. They don't give a predicate of how this all started, but of course they would never do that. But I mean, what this suggests to me is that Israelis feel they can go anywhere in the world and treat it like Gaza. That's what it looks like to me.
That's what it looks like to me as well. Willem Alexander said, our history has taught us how intimidation goes from bad to worse, adding that the country could not ignore anti-Semitic behavior. It's sort of interesting how the Dutch authorities have completely caved. They just caved entirely, essentially, as if their comments are being drafted in Tel Aviv. I mean, you've just simply said all of this, anti-Semitic behavior, when even the newspapers are telling you that somehow, well, something else went on. There's another side to the story.
I know I'm pretty sure I saw it earlier today. Who was the taxi driver? Was he an Arab? Was he
Yeah,
Palestinian?
it's very difficult. I tried to dig this up and I couldn't find it. Maybe
Well,
it's
what
probably
about
reported
his?
somewhere, but I hadn't read it.
Should he feel? Shouldn't he have the right to feel safe?
Yeah,
It,
yeah. I mean, and if he's
presumably, I think it's fair to say he's at least a resident,
the
maybe
radio.
a citizen. I don't know, but he's certainly a resident. I think I don't think just anyone can get a taxi license in
I don't
Amsterdam.
think so. And I think if your taxi has been destroyed, that's kind of your livelihood gone. Which is presumably why the taxi drivers all kind of
Yeah.
got together in his defense. Youths on scooters had crisscrossed the Dutch capital in hit-and-run attacks on Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters who were visiting Amsterdam. And then he goes on, US President Joe Biden said the attacks echo dark moments in history when Jews were persecuted.
Yeah, well, there's a really dark moment going on in Gaza right now, President
Right.
Biden.
That's right. That's right. And then there had already been trouble and some arrests the night before Thursday's match, involving Maccabi fans as well as pro-Palestinian protesters. And then Police Chief Peter Holler confirmed that there had been incidents on both sides. Israeli supporters had removed a Palestinian flag from a wall and set it alight and attacked a taxi, although there had been no further trouble until the following night, he said.
It's interesting. It looks like, and George does such a wonderful job doing this. He kind of collates us for us the different reporting here,
Right.
and that's really important. But what they don't they don't want us to make they want us to make the connection that we should feel bad for these Israeli fans and players because they saw a Palestinian. They were triggered. They were
They were
triggered.
triggered by seeing a Palestinian flag. They
Yeah.
removed it from a wall and set it alight.
But I don't know. I mean, I think in most major cities, you just can't be burning things in public.
I don't
Okay.
think so, and I
It
think
looks
when
to
you
me that there is a blind eye to criminal activity on
right,
the part of these Israeli supporters and possibly the players. I don't know,
right,
but on both sides, this reporting is all one side.
right. But of course, let's say it was the other way around. There was some Muslims saw an Israeli flags, they tore it down from a wall, and then they burnt the Israeli flag. The media would be just going absolutely crazy. Again, Kristallnacht, anti-Semitism, and the Jews are no longer feel safe anywhere, the usual thing. So here they just report this as well. Okay, Palestinian flag was burned. Okay, well, things happen. But it's kind of a big deal when you go to another country and then you just take down a flag and you burn it. Yeah, I mean that's not a good look, and it's going to provoke a reaction. And of course, then it raises another question, and I think we're going to come to that, which is, was this whole incident a provocation? Did these Israeli football fans essentially instigated with, and then there were people back in Tel Aviv who wanted to provoke a confrontation and then to scream anti-Semitism, Jews are not safe anywhere in Europe, and so on. It sounds very much like it, that this was, Israelis are very good at this. They've been doing this, since forever, provoking violence and then screaming, "Oh my God, we're persecuted! It's anti-Semitism."
The entire Zionist outlook is to generate as much anti-Semitism as
Right,
possible, because
right,
that gives the default position as Greater Israel's the only place safe for Jews, which
right,
is actually kind of ironic as Hezbollah rockets continue to
right,
deprive tens of thousands of Israelis
right,
from returning to their homes. So,
right,
yeah, I mean, this is very well documented, right? And it was
right,
in their first stage was after the establishment of the Israeli state, these kind of provocations were played out
right,
all through the Middle East, in Iraq, in Egypt here,
right,
to drive the Jews out, to make them come to Israel. This was all part of a plan.
right. And then that's right. So asked whether locals had been provoked by a Palestinian flag being torn down in the city, the mayor said that what had happened in the center of a city had nothing to do with the protest about the situation in the Middle East. That's a non sequitur. You haven't answered the question. You were asked the question, asked whether locals had been provoked by a Palestinian flag being torn down in the city. Mayor had said, "Well, it's got nothing to do with protests and about the situation in the Middle East." That's not what you answer. This question: was it a provocative act to tear down a Palestinian flag and to set it on fire?
This, I mean, I could he have said that with a straight face, George?
So
I mean,
I mean, talk about avoiding answering a very straightforward question. I am deeply
I wouldn't
ashamed.
be surprised if it was probably more of a reaction to Donald Trump's election. But
That's right,
anyway,
exactly. That's right. I am deeply ashamed of the behavior that unfolded. Hal Shema told reporters on Telegram messaging groups, people talked of going to hunt down Jews. It's so terrible. I can't find the words for
well,
it.
I mean, okay, maybe you can't find words for it, but can you give us a screenshot of it?
Exactly, it's good. Exactly where they said hunting down Jews. And so please provide us with the screenshots of this. Israeli President Isaac Herzog spoke of a pogrom. I was wondering who would be the first to talk about pogroms against Maccabi fans and Israeli citizens. Herzog said on X that he trusted the Dutch authorities would act immediately to protect and locate and rescue all Israelis and Jews under attack. Again, the speed with which these the highest levels of the Israeli government spoke out about this makes one very suspicious about this. And then it says CNN says Amsterdam bans protests for 3 days following violent attacks on Israeli soccer fans. CNN, interestingly, is more even tempered. It says violent attacks on Israeli soccer fans. It doesn't say it was an anti-Semitic, pogrom or whatever.
Well, Dana Bash didn't write this. Okay.
No, exactly. Amsterdam has banned demonstrations for 3 days after Israeli soccer fans were beaten and injured in violent clashes in the city overnight, which Dutch authorities condemned Friday as anti-Semitic. Dutch police said they had launched a major investigation into multiple incidents, and then we have again the Amsterdam mayor, and then again this is CNN. Tensions had been rising in the lead up to Thursday night's match, with multiple social media videos showing Maccabi fans chanting anti-Arab slurs, praising Israeli military attacks in Gaza, and yelling, "F the Arabs." Other videos, apparently filmed in Amsterdam, show men ripping Palestinian flags off buildings. So that's now multiple Palestinian flags. It is unclear when those videos were filmed, okay? After the game, hundreds of Maccabi fans were ambushed and attacked, the Israeli embassy to the United States said on social media platform X, sharing video of the
Well,
violence.
again, you have to call it out. I mean, at least they put that into air quotes.
That's right. Yeah. Israeli embassy to the United States. Why is the Israeli embassy to the United States sending this out? Netanyahu on Friday received a briefing from the country's foreign ministry regarding efforts to return Israeli citizens from Amsterdam. During the meeting, but again, who's preventing Israeli citizens from returning from Amsterdam? I'm sure it's not a rampaging mob is preventing them to return to Israel. It sounds like maybe the authorities had arrested some Israeli fans who were also engaging in violence, and that's what they're so concerned about. I don't think anyone's going to stop them from going to the airport and flying home. There's a real problem about returning Israeli citizens. I think that they were concerned that Israeli citizens would be arrested. During the meeting, Netanyahu compared the anti-Semitic attacks on soccer fans to Kristallnacht. And then tomorrow, 86 years ago, was Kristallnacht, an attack on Jews, whatever Jews they are, on European soil. It's back now. Yesterday, we celebrated it on the streets of Amsterdam. That's what happened. There's only one.
Israeli football fans provoke a crisis, and they're the victims.
That's right. Exactly. They're the victims. It's a masterful ploy. The Israelis have been so good at this. They provoke it, and they are the victims. There's only one difference. In the meantime, the Jewish state has been established. We have to deal with it. And then Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar traveled to the Netherlands. Imagine, Israeli Foreign Minister is now traveling to the Netherlands over this in the wake of the attacks, which he condemned as barbaric and anti-Semitic, and called a blaring alarm call for Europe and the world. Europe and the world. You come along, you behave like absolute disgusting yobs in a foreign city. You provoke this violence, and now it's blaring alarm for Europe and the world. Following a meeting with top Dutch officials on Friday, Saar highlighted that Israel expected criminal proceedings against Thursday perpetrators. We expect arrests. We expect a severe punishment. But those slogans about the which we looked at, most countries in Europe, you kind of get arrested for slogans like that. That's hate speech.
It's incitement to violence as well.
Yeah. I mean, those are, in Britain, you would absolutely be in prison by now. If you go around, F the Arabs, you'd be in prison for that.
Yeah, and then these fans that are being flown back are going to be greeted at the airport and say, "You gave it to him," and they will probably repeat the disgusting chant about children in schools. That is so disturbing, George. It is so.
It is. It really is. And then here's the Times of Israel. Dutch government probing missed Israeli warnings ahead of Amsterdam, quote, pogrom, unquote. So now we have Israeli warnings. This is why, when you read these things, you suspect that the whole thing was an Israeli government operation. Officials say Mossad asked local authorities to step up security at stadium, hotels, after seeing social media flare up. Minister vows to find every attacker. 59 of 63 suspects freed.
Of these Israeli soccer fans, how many of them remember the IDF?
Exactly. How many?
Yeah, because I saw some of the videos. They're awful to look at. I hate looking at violence, but some of these guys look pretty fit to me.
Yes,
okay,
they did.
And that was the first time I thought, is that a reservist?
Yeah.
Was good playing into George's, I think, very viable theory right here. So they were told you could get rough, guys. Okay, yes. But that's part of the deal.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And again, I always wonder when you have these things is it's kind of expensive to fly from Israel to Amsterdam, spend the night there, a couple of nights maybe, fly back. That's not that you need some money for that. So how was so many Israelis were able to do this? The Dutch government is investigating whether and how warning signs highlighted by Israel were missed in the events leading up to this week's widespread attacks by local Arab and Muslim gangs on Maccabi Tel Aviv soccer fans in
Oh,
Amsterdam.
now they're Muslim gangs. Okay, all
So
right.
yeah, that's right. So how do warning signs? An investigation is still. This is Justice Minister David Van Wiel said in a letter to Parliament. An investigation is still being conducted on possible warning signs from Israel. So they never got these. You know, they're claiming that they sent these warning messages, and he's saying, well, we never got anything. The Public Prosecution Service has stated that it aims to apply fast-track justice as much as possible, adding that it is absolute priority to identify every suspect.
Yeah, but who is a suspect in this?
Right. It's
Who is a suspect?
the who
Okay.
are the suspects? Exactly. All the Israelis are gone. They've gone. So no one's going to prosecute them. I mean, you're not going to start issuing arrest warrants for the Israeli soccer fans. And then it says a senior Israeli security official said that Israeli security service had identified a flare-up on Dutch social media ahead of the game, with calls by pro-Palestinian groups to hold a violent protest near the stadium. But
Screenshot, please. Screenshot, please.
Screenshot, yeah. But also, from what we gather, this was on Wednesday night. This whole thing started on Wednesday night when they attacked the taxi driver and tore down the Palestinian flag. So they say, oh well, they were ahead of the game, so they were planning it on ahead of the game. That's already after the violence that was already provoked by the Israeli fans. So they're making this. Oh well, we were, they were planning all this violence. Well, you know, who started the violence? This wasn't a response to this pro-Palestinian groups or whatever. Who was doing the chanting? Who was taking down the Palestinian flags? Due to this, the Mossad passed a warning to security services in the Netherlands with a request to immediately and significantly reinforce the security for Israelis in the area of the stadium and across the city, with an emphasis placed on hotels where the fans were known to be staying. So when you read things like this is when you start suspecting that there was something else going on here. That this is and again, when you have these events, and this is, the media cover this and everything, then everyone naturally forgets about Gaza. This is
well, exactly, George. Exactly.
Okay.
This is worse than Gaza.
This is worse than Gaza. Exactly. This is worse than Gaza. Somebody gets punched in the face, and this is the worst crisis we have in world history.
And to date, approximately 70% of the people murdered in Gaza are women and children.
Right. Okay. That's right. And and Netanyahu said, "Oh yeah, this is Kristallnacht and everything." So exactly. Well,
it's Kristallnacht every day in Gaza.
It's Kristallnacht every day. And then, however, he noted that Israel's National Security Council had not been briefed on the threats, and as such did not issue a warning to the public, including to some 3,000 fans who had traveled to see the match between Maccabi Tel Aviv and Ayan.
A lot of fans.
That's a lot of 3,000.
Before that number showed up here, I was thinking a few hundred at most.
Yeah. That's a lot. It's strange. It's for this huge excursion for a match that doesn't really, this is very early in the season, so this isn't such a huge significant. It's not like the cup final or a semi-final or quarterfinal. This is just a very early preliminary match. So it's an awful lot of fans going to a not particularly significant match. And then the official noted that the attacks, which he said spread like wildfire, were apparently organized by Islamic elements in the Netherlands and not by Iran. Oh, damn, not by Iran. Iran asleep at the switch.
So I'm just imagining here, whoever wrote this here, they finished their copy, they give it to their editor, said, can you fit in Iran somewhere?
Exactly.
just mention it somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Hebrew media on Friday also detailed that other Israeli ministries had also identified threats ahead of the game, with the Diaspora Affairs Ministry, which monitors anti-Semitism around the world, drawing up a warning document on Wednesday that highlighted the very high risk of such attack. But why didn't you tell them, the fans, don't engage in anti-Arab chants, because there's a lot of anti-Israeli feeling out there, and things could get very nasty. Um, and then here we have Al Jazeera, which is a slightly different take, as you would expect. Israeli football fans clash with protesters in Amsterdam. Amsterdam City Council member says Maccabi hooligans instigated violence and attacked Palestinian supporters. And then this is the Al Jazeera correspondent, says hundreds of supporters of Maccabi Tel Aviv came to Amsterdam, held a very vocal rally in the main square before the incident, waving Israeli flags, and also took down the Palestinian flags. I saw these Israeli flags, which is very, very strange to go and start waving Israeli flags. When you
Well, I mean,
club
I I live, the building in front of me, right behind it is a stadium. And when there are matches, everybody is wearing their scarf for the
right,
two
the club
teams.
scarf, yeah.
Club scarf. That's,
Yeah.
I've never seen a flag.
No, and exactly. It's very strange. I mean, you see it when you have national matches, but not when you have club matches. On Thursday, police said on social media that they were being particularly vigilant in the wake of politically charged incidents, including this Palestinian flag. And then social media videos captured the reported incidents, showing Israeli fans shouting slogans while an individual was taking a flag down. Before the game, video showed crowds of Maccabi supporters chanting anti-Arab slogans. In one video, Israeli supporters were heard singing, "Let the IDF win" and "F the Arabs," referring to Israeli army's offensive in Gaza. Another video captured a fan screaming, "F you, terrorists, Sinwar die, everybody die," and then in reference to Hamas leader who was killed last month. And then again, the Israeli fans instigated the violence after arriving in the city and attacking Palestinian supporters before the match. An Amsterdam City Council member said they began attacking houses of people in Amsterdam with Palestinian flags. So that's actually where the violence started. This is Councilman.
Okay, so this is different reporting. They began attacking houses. See, in the previous, it's like one flag. Was it a flag someone was holding?
That's
Or
right.
was it a big flag? Was it a cloth flag? Was it we don't really know. But this is more information here. It said attacking houses.
Houses. There was one of the stories, I think it was on the CNN, said a number of Palestinian flags. They mentioned Palestinian flags. So up until then, New York Times said there's just this one flag. Now we're talking about other Palestinian flags. As a reaction, Amsterdammers mobilized themselves and countered the attacks. And so on. And then Netanyahu also ordered the country's spy agencies to draw up a plan to prevent violence at events abroad. What does that mean? You're going to send Israeli forces? Israeli forces are going to be stationed in cities around the world?
Yeah, that's exactly what it means.
Right.
That's exactly what it means. Because they will supersede the sovereign country's military police forces. Yeah, that's exactly what they want.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So their fans can go shout about
exactly, and
why aren't there any children at school because there are no schools? Okay, so you can protect that speech.
Exactly. I have instructed the head of the Mossad and other officials to prepare our courses of actions, our alert system, and our organization for a new situation, he said in a video statement during a meeting at the foreign ministry to oversee the evacuation of Israelis from Amsterdam.
Even those that might have committed a crime.
Exactly, those who evacuation. And then the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs condemned what he calls anti-Arab chants and apparent attacks on the Palestinian flag. In a statement posted on X on Friday, it called on the Dutch government to conduct an immediate investigation into the instigators of these disturbances and to protect Palestinians and Arabs residing in the Netherlands. But
meanwhile, all the Israeli soccer fans are back home.
They're all back home. But it's interesting. So the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs issues this statement, but we have all these quotes from these Dutch government officials. None of them say anything about any protections for Palestinians, for Muslims, for Arabs. All of it is about anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism. We can't have anti-Semitism here.
Well, also, and to protect Palestinians and Arabs residing in the Netherlands. I mean, you've got to be joking. You've got is that a sick What about where Palestinians and Arabs live in your neighborhood? Okay,
Right.
this is more.
Yes,
It's pathetic, George.
it is pathetic.
It's such an insult to humanity.
It is. And then now this Ori Goldberg. He's a political commentator in Israel. And he says here, this is the tweet that he sent out. Events in Amsterdam and their aftermath are important because they present the world with a glimpse at mainstream Israeli discourse. What in the eyes of most Israelis is the bonding agent between various Israeli factions. We are these marauding, beaten fans. The behavior of Maccabi Tel Aviv's hooligans should not be seen as, well, hooliganism. Following your team on an away game is an exercise in belonging. You build on the tropes most immediately accessible to you in order to present a united front, to project faith.
Really? Is that what bonds people? Genocide? Is that what he's saying?
That's what he seems to be saying.
Ethnic cleansing a way to bond with your people?
That's it seems to be. So he says here, what were these tropes? First, violent removal from our sight of anything Palestinian and Arab. We don't care to differentiate. Palestinian flags must be torn off and ripped. Arab agency and humanity must be mocked and violently disparaged. Well, it sounds like that's exactly what happened.
Well, I mean, George and I really try to be careful here, but that's really reminiscent of what came out of the Ministry of Propaganda promoting Kristallnacht. Okay, we have a sense of belonging. Okay,
right. But he's a critic. I mean, he's criticizing here. I mean, he's
but he's highlighting here.
Exactly. That's what he said. That's Israeli attitude, and clearly that is Israeli attitude. I mean, it's just that exactly. This is how they behave when they go abroad. The utter contempt and disdain. Basically for the Amsterdam authorities. But for any Palestinians or Arab sympathizers or anything they come their way. And then says, second, complete and utter disrespect for anything but ourselves. We don't observe moments of silence. We invade others' property. That was the moment of silence during the match for the victims of the floods in Spain. So they didn't bother to observe the moment of silence. We invade others' property. We attack and yell our racist, murderous songs. We fully expect to get away with it. We are right, after all. We are good, and we don't care. Third, assuming the position of the perennial victim and exaggerating it to mythical proportions. It's Kristallnacht, it's Holocaust. Jews are once again being slaughtered on the streets of Europe. But most importantly, impunity. It's never our fault. We suffer. Fourth, mostly in the aftermath, we can tell you weak Europeans and Americans what to do. We are the experts. We will not, of course, tell you how to make it better. As oracles, we only forecast doom. More accurately, we become the hate against which we preach.
Very well said.
Yeah, and then Israeli reporters are now explaining Europe's immigration issues to Europeans. They are also warning Europeans against taking in Gazan refugees because they are all criminal Muslims, even if you don't care that they kill Jews. We are not just killers and victims. We are wise. We stand alone. We are the complete package. We kill and we are killed, and we already know everything about to happen. But actually, in non-solipsistic terms, we hate and we fear. That is what makes us Israelis right now. These are the ties that bind us. So that's kind of, that is indeed the Israeli attitude. I think this thing was a setup, so to get everyone talking about Kristallnacht, Holocaust, raging anti-Semitism in Europe, and even the media, the mainstream media, can't but report how the whole thing started. They have to say, even though they say, oh, yeah, anti-Semitism, in the headlines, but they have to say, well, how did this whole thing start? They have to acknowledge that. But they know, they get all the government officials, Biden, the King of Holland and whatever. Oh my God, we can't have this. We can't have any more. That this is the darkest chapter in our history. So this is where we
Yeah,
are.
but see, they're all intellectually and morally dishonest, obviously. And this is a way to soothe their inner guilt for
Right.
what they're supporting.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's almost kind of, equal sidism. It's
Right.
just, okay, they're suffering, but so the
Right.
Israelis,
Right.
okay. And
Right.
we have to be very careful how they feel about
Right.
anti-Semitism.
Right.
It's trying to equal the leisure, and
Yeah.
it's not, okay. And I've said this, I'm not saying people will be politically or legally held responsible, but morally, people will judge you on what side you're on this one, okay? All of these, like Jordan Peterson, which had, a pretty good standing among particularly young men. I mean, you're on the wrong side, man. You're just really on the wrong side. A lot of you are, okay? And when you see officialdom like that bend over backwards, I mean, laws were broken. So
Right.
where's the equality under the
Right.
law?
Right.
Okay. Some people can come to your country and wreak havoc, and
Right.
then you have your self-loathing.
Yeah.
Really? What
That's right.
kind, what kind of people are you? What kind of people? How can people like this claim any kind of moral standing, George, when they
That's
won't
right.
even
Yeah.
protect their own citizens? Again, they never really talk about the non-Israelis that were injured. Okay,
Right.
what do we know about them? What
Yeah.
happened to that taxi driver? Was
That's
this
right.
taxi completely destroyed? Were
Yeah.
other taxi drivers injured? What about the people in the middle of the melee?
Right.
What about them? They don't count.
Right.
They don't
Right.
count.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's the point. But they're so easily cowed that the authorities, you know, adopt the Israeli slogans. That, oh yeah, this was anti-Semitism. This was an anti-Semitic rampaging mob. When they know perfectly well that's not what happened. They know perfectly well that this was, these were soccer hooligans. They were provoking. They set out to provoke a reaction. And then when they got the reaction, boom, the whole, the whole Holocaust apparat went into action, and they, oh yes, we're very, very sorry, we can't have this in Holland. We realize that here we're in Holland, we're riddled with anti-Semitism. They know this is a lie, but they are so cowed that they go along with it. And then Netanyahu comes along, yeah, in future we're going to be doing the policing in your streets because we just don't trust you. Yeah, they probably will accept it. They say, "Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of anti-Semitism. We kind of have to bring in the Israeli authorities and police our streets for us."
Yeah, but I'm really glad. Kudos to George for putting the Ori, like
Yeah,
that Israeli guy. That really speaks volumes to me. I was very impressed by that. Okay, because that is a self-reflection.
right,
Okay,
right,
and of course, when it comes from an Israeli himself, that gives it a more of a cachet.
right.
But yeah. Okay, so we weren't talking about gossip for a news
That's
cycle.
right, exactly.
I guess that was the whole point, huh?
Well, that's the whole point. And I think then again, we're going to have this whole, chest beating about rising anti-Semitism and so on. So that was the whole point. That's it. Oh, Israel is the perpetual victim. And we can never get away from that. It's always Israel is the perpetual victim. There's always somebody out to massacre you. There's always somebody who wants to do terrible things to you. They've mastered this. The Israelis have absolutely
Yeah,
mastered
but I
this
mean,
this absolute lie, and people fall for it.
why don't we just step back a little bit here? We don't from the resources that George presented us. We don't know the identity of the taxi driver, and we don't know his name. But presumably, I think it's a fair thing to assume that he was Arab, maybe Palestinian. So put this into perspective. So if you're a Palestinian in Amsterdam, you still can be at the short end of the stick of violence from
Right.
Israelis, okay? Not
Exactly.
just in Gaza, okay?
Yes.
Not just in the West Bank.
Right.
Driving a taxi in, which of course is highly regulated, okay? And and then you're a victim of Israeli violence and bigotry, okay?
Right.
That part of the story is never told.
Right. Right. No, that's right. It is kind of extraordinary generally. I mean, you have these soccer fans. They go to a foreign city. They start taking down flags, Palestinian flags, because they're so triggered by the sight of Palestinian flags, and then they enjoy the protection of the Amsterdam police as they do so. And then when the protection kind of fails, they start screaming that somehow, the Dutch authorities have failed us, as if somehow it's the responsibility of the Dutch authorities to provide an escort um, when you go on a rampage in a foreign city. Um,
So that means when Israeli soccer fans go to a foreign city, they're the official occupiers,
that's
right?
right.
They're a foreign occupier.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right. That's
Again,
right.
the historical analogies, we could go on and on. George and I don't like to do that, but yeah, someone shows up in your city and saying, "We're calling the shots." Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a fascinating story. It was interesting. I'm glad George gave the juxtaposition from Western media to Al Jazeera because this is their wheelhouse. Okay, when it comes to these things, I do appreciate their reporting. The rest of it is neoliberal junk,
yeah.
but on this one, you can at least go and say there's another point of view on this
Right,
story.
that's right,
That's
and
valuable.
that's why it's also good. There's a commentator from Israel. What does he say? He said, "Yeah, that's exactly it. This is how Israelis now behave abroad. This is what they do. This is the same arrogance and violence and brutality that they displayed against Palestinians in their neighborhood. They extend this when they visit other countries. So, but there is talk. I mean, just going back to our earlier video, there's talk that the next ambassador to the UN will be Representative Elise Stefanik, who's probably the most fanatical Israeli shill in Congress. It hasn't been confirmed, so it may not be, but it wouldn't surprise me. And if
It
she
wouldn't
had
be, it
been,
wouldn't surprise me, but George, um, what do you bet that Joe Biden's legacy, what will Joe Biden's legacy be? It's what he left behind. That's what people will
right,
probably ultimately remember him for, the
right,
mess that he left behind.
right,
Okay. And Donald Trump has an amazing popular mandate.
right,
And we've talked a lot about that. Okay. And so here's a person that the country, believe it or not, George, unifying around Donald Trump.
right,
You can make this case. You can
right.
make this case. Okay. He's being set up to fail. And at least she'll do it for him.
And she'll
Okay.
do it for him, yeah, because she uh, just like the Nikki Haley sees her position just as, and Nikki Haley was very open about this, as being the representative of Israel. When you go to the UN, you are actually representing Israel. You aren't representing the United States. Nikki Haley said that. That's my job. And I think Elise Stefanik will also say that, and will spend her time denouncing rampant anti-Semitism. And if she'd been in power office today, she would be along there, screaming, and she'd probably fly into Amsterdam herself to read the riot act to the Dutch authorities.
Take the plane. I'll swim. I'll go. Okay. It's slavish. Why is it slavish? Because we are in an environment, in a time where there is no downside in doing this slavish, shameless
Right,
behavior. There is
right,
no downside. Look, she may become a U.S. ambassador to the United Nations for her kangaroo court that she
right,
did against the Ivy League schools. Okay, it was absolutely shameful.
right,
Okay, I mean McCarthy, Joseph McCarthy would be
right,
smirking in the grave. It's like, that's how you do it, huh? That's exactly how you do it.
right,
Okay, there's no downside from this horrendous behavior and outlook. Okay,
right.
not yet, at least. Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Blew off some steam here on Sunday night. Okay. All right. Good choice of topics, George.
Yeah.
This is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on local, so please go to the gaggle.locals.com. This is Sunday. We just did our double-barreled wrap for Sunday. We're going to do a live stream tomorrow at 10
a.m. Eastern time. 10 a.m. Eastern time. And then I do my solo 3 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. And please, tomorrow, have some questions for us. We love answering your questions. So homework assignment, think of some good questions to ask us, more interesting comments and observations. We'll love addressing those. So that's tomorrow. In the meantime, the dogs are getting very, very restless. They just don't appreciate this cold weather. They didn't ask for it. They got it. And there's only one way of putting them into halfway decent mood, and that is when they see coins dropping in the tip jar. So if you have a few coins, stuffed behind the cushion, under the mattress or whatever, get it out, dunk them in the tip jar. That might make these the Moscow winter a little more tolerable. So we're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology, and we might get dogs in a better temper. Unlikely, but we'll try. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye-bye.